The Sacramento Kings are actually good? When was the last time you've heard anyone say that? This is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2006. Anytime you have a conversation with your buddies about basketball, and whenever the Kings get mentioned, everyone starts laughing. That's how it was for the past decade plus. They've been the laughingstock of the NBA for such a long time. There's an entire generation of fans who never saw the Kings in the playoffs. The last time they were good was when Chris Webber was there. Peja, Mike Bibby, Vlade Divac, Doug Christie, and sixth man dynamo Bobby Jackson. For us fans who've seen them play back in the day, this was our last memory of the Kings being a good team. But now, it looks like there's hope after all. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's get started. Before the 2022-23 season began, this looked like another lost year for this franchise. According to 538.com, the Kings were projected to win 31 games with a mere 13% chance to make the playoffs. They were essentially rated as the 6th worst team in the NBA, which honestly seemed quite accurate coming into the season. We didn't know they'd be this good. The Kings did make some offseason acquisitions, namely Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk, but nobody really thought much of it. Yeah, they were two solid role players who've had some decent seasons, but how much will they actually impact the team? The critics believe that they're just another two players who'll disappear once they arrive in Sacramento. The doubters saw De'Aaron Fox as a guy who, he's shown flashes of superstar potential, but he's always been inconsistent. His shot selection has been a target of pundits. For years, his playstyle has been examined, and the conclusion was he was just another erratic point guard who won't progress that much more. The critics looked at Domantas Sabonis as a guy who's immensely talented on offense, but was a complete turnstile on defense. And if your center is bad on defense, chances are the entire team is bad on defense. We thought he reached his ceiling too. However, despite all of these negative perceptions of all these guys, they're proving everybody wrong. Let's start with De'Aaron Fox. When the Kings traded away Tyrese Haliburton last year to Indiana, the fans were obviously unhappy. Haliburton was a bright spot. He was arguably their most talented young prospect with unlimited potential, while Fox was accused of being a ball hog and not giving Haliburton enough touches. This trade was initially seen as a huge win for the Pacers, which, it still is. Haliburton is now one of the best point guards in the league. But now it seems like it's more of a win-win trade. Fox was also in the midst of trade rumors. Oh, he heard them, and something lit up inside him. In an interview with Draymond Green, Fox said that when Haliburton got traded, it motivated him more than ever. Not only did he wholeheartedly commit to leading this franchise back to the playoffs, but he also wanted to show them they made the right choice in keeping him. As of this video, through the first 15 games, Fox has averaged 25 a game on ridiculous percentages, including 38% from 3 on the most attempts of his career, a nice improvement from years past. However, the most notable thing that stands out is his ability to finish at the basket. He's hitting a whopping 91% of his shots at the rim. He was always a great finisher, averaging 70% for his career, which is great for a point guard. But 91%? That's historically good, and that's by far the best in the current NBA. It helps when your team actually has good spacing for once, to open up the floor and give him the space to drive. As a team, the Kings used to be 25th in the NBA in three-point percentage last year at 34.4%. Now they're 5th in the NBA at 38%. This brings us to the next topic, the acquisition of Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter. You wonder why the Kings' spacing is so good? Well, Huerter is shooting nearly 50% from 3 on over 7 attempts per game. That's good for the 7th best in the NBA, but his volume is way higher than anyone else ahead of him. And here's a cool stat. Whenever Fox and Huerter are on the floor together, the Kings have a whopping 122 offensive rating. That would be the highest in the NBA. Heck, they already do have the highest offensive rating in the league as a team. Speaking of which, the Kings hired coach Mike Brown over the summer, and it was met with, meh. He's had his chances in the NBA before, but nothing really stood out. However, he spent years as an assistant in Golden State and is now implementing a very similar offense to what they had back then. A very free-flowing offense, a ton of ball movement, players cutting and passing. It works very well in Sacramento because this team has the personnel to do it. Sabonis is a phenomenal passer, and he's being put in a similar spot as Draymond Green was back in the day. This is a very young team with great athletes and great shooters. Like, out of everyone who gets significant playing time, Harrison Barnes, I believe, is the oldest player at 30 years old. Everyone else is like 24 to 26 or in their early 20s. This revamped offense has resulted in the Kings recording the 3rd most assists in the NBA and the 5th most passes per game. An article from Brendan Nunez of the Kings Herald described Mike Brown's approach like this. Coach Brown has implemented 5 offensive staples since taking over as head coach. They are pace, spacing, playing .5 basketball, paint touches, and ball reversals. .5 basketball means making decisions in .5 seconds to emphasize ball movement and discourage over-dribbling. The best part is, when the team is winning, everyone starts to buy in. Kevin Huerter reinforced Brown's offensive approach, saying, "The ball is power, the ball is energy, you move the ball, you move the energy around. Guys are going to like playing with each other and it helps build chemistry pretty fast." If you're a team that 1 or 2 guys are dominating the ball, you don't build chemistry very fast. This is something I've heard before. It's definitely a very similar approach to the Spurs or Warriors of the past decade. I remember when Domantas Sabonis first arrived in Sacramento. There were jokes that the worst defensive team in the NBA just acquired the worst defensive starting center in the NBA. We all know how much he provides on offense. He's the engine that keeps it moving, and he's a walking bucket. But defense is still a thorn on his side. While the Kings have skyrocketed to the top of the leaderboard in offense, they're still near the bottom in defense, 27th in defensive rating. That's the biggest question mark with this team. Once their absurd shooting comes back down to earth, what's left of this team? Can they still win games if they don't have a solid defense to fall back on? The Kings are scorching through the league. Their offense is literally at historic levels. Through the first 15 games of the season, they're averaging 120.1 points a game. That's the most points through the first 15 games since the 1984-85 Denver Nuggets, who averaged 123.4 points a game in their first 15. For a team that started the season going 0-4, this is wild. Nobody expected the Kings to be this good, but it's also very pleasant to see. Anyway, that's all folks. The Kings have been fantastic, but the jury's still out on if they can keep this up. I think they will regress to the mean eventually, so when the time comes, that's the real test. If they can make adjustments. Now here's the big question. Do you foresee them making the playoffs this year? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.